In a warehouse buzzing with activity, a worker steps where no one should, and in seconds, the machine shows why. The footage captures a worker sorting packages beside a long conveyor line. To most, the belt looks harmless, just rubber moving boxes down the line. But to safety experts, conveyors are known as one of the most dangerous tools in logistics, packed with hidden pinch points and relentless rollers. As the worker adjusts packages, he makes a critical move, stepping onto the moving conveyor. Almost instantly, the belt pulls forward beneath his feet, its momentum leaving no room for balance. What seemed like a harmless step turns into a stark reminder of why conveyors demand strict separation from foot traffic. Never ever step onto a moving conveyor. These belts are designed for freight, not people. Even at low speeds, rollers and pinch points can trap clothing or limbs before anyone can react. The only safe practice is clear ground rules. Stay off the belt, use designated walkways, and rely on emergency stops if something goes wrong. In a storage yard, a massive steel coil breaks free, and once it starts rolling, nothing can hold it back. Steel coils weigh several tons, tightly wound and stacked for transport. On flat ground, they sit steady, but on the slightest slope, or when restraints fail, they can turn into runaway hazards. With so much weight and momentum, they move with unstoppable force. Security footage shows a coil suddenly rolling loose. Workers notice, but one instinctively steps forward, reaching out as if to stop it. In an instant, the runaway steel shows how futile human effort is. Its massive weight and momentum turn a simple slip into an unstoppable force. Never, ever try to stop a rolling load by hand. A steel coil, pipe, or cylinder carries more momentum than any person can withstand. The only safe response is to get out of its path and let engineered barriers, wedges, or containment systems do the stopping. In a marble factory, towering stacks of stone rest on flimsy racks. One worker moves between them, unaware that the structure holding tons of weight is seconds from collapse. Marble tiles and slabs are heavy, unforgiving materials. To keep production moving, they're often stacked in bulk, bundled together in sheeting. In this factory, the stone is placed on makeshift racks, metal frames not designed to bear such enormous loads. The setup looks routine, but it's a complete trap. Unstable storage, no protective gear, and workers moving freely between hazards. As the worker bends to adjust something, the rack begins to give way. The weight is too much. In an instant, the structure buckles, and tons of slabs cascade down in a thunderous crash. The workspace vanishes beneath falling stone, turning routine movement into sudden chaos. Never, ever overload storage racks or allow workers into unsafe spaces between unstable loads. Heavy stone must always be stored with engineered supports, spacing barriers, and clear exclusion zones. Without structural integrity, any rack can fail, and once it does, human strength is no match for falling slabs. On a busy factory floor, a pile of strips fed into a roller machine suddenly turns from routine work into a near disaster. This was a textile plant where long strips of material needed to be pushed into the rollers for processing. Two workers stood side by side, feeding the tangled lengths in. To them, it felt like everyday work. Grab the strips, straighten them out, and keep production moving. But right beside them, the rollers turned constantly, designed to pull in whatever touched their grip. As the two men handled the bundle, the fabric twisted and caught in the rollers. In an instant, the pull was relentless, threatening to drag everything closer. For a moment, it looked like control was lost, but the coworker reacted instantly, hitting the emergency stop button just in time. The intervention turned a near disaster into a narrow escape. Never ever feed material into a roller with bare hands and loose fabric unguarded. These machines are relentless. The moment fabric gets caught, it becomes a rope pulling anything in its path. Guarding, push tools, and emergency stops exist for a reason, to ensure that workers never have to rely on luck or another person's quick reflexes to survive. In a factory where robotic arms move steel with relentless precision, one step into their work zone can turn deadly. This is a modern industrial line, humming with automation. Sheets of metal are stacked, transferred, and pressed by robotic manipulators. The machines don't hesitate, they don't pause, and they don't forgive. Workers are meant to observe from a safe distance, never to intrude on their programmed cycle. But then, a worker in a red helmet steps directly into the robot's operating range. The arm pivots to grab the next sheet, blind to his presence. In a sweeping motion, the gripper surges forward, its programmed task colliding with human movement. In an instant, what should have been a routine cycle turns into a reminder of how unforgiving automation can be. Never ever enter the operating zone of an active robotic arm. Robots do not see you, do not sense hesitation, and will not stop unless safeguards are engaged. On a steep hillside, a backhoe works dangerously close to the edge until the ground gives way. It's a routine construction day on a narrow dirt road cut into the hillside. The machine operator is using the backhoe to level the soil, pushing loads of earth towards the edge. To an untrained eye, it looks like just another day's work. But beneath the machine's heavy tires, the slope is soft, unstable, and giving way little by little. As the operator continues working, the backhoe inches closer to the drop. Suddenly, the soil beneath gives way. In seconds, the slope collapses and the massive machine tips forward, tumbling out of control. What looked like solid ground reveals itself as a hidden trap, showing how quickly stability can vanish on unstable terrain. Never ever operate heavy machinery close to the edge of unstable ground without barriers, proper reinforcement, and ground stability checks. The weight of the machine will always win against a weak slope. High above the skeleton of a rising building, one wrong step on unstable scaffolding sets disaster in motion. This was an ordinary day at a construction site where workers were reinforcing columns and placing boards for the next level. The structure was still raw, with gaps, open edges, and no guardrails. Scaffolding and temporary planks lined the edges, but they weren't secured, leaving dangerous spaces where one misstep could change everything. A worker moves across the edge, carrying out his tasks, but as he shifts his weight, the plank gives way. In an instant, the support collapses, leaving him with no lifeline, no harness, no net, and nowhere to stabilize. A single moment of instability reveals the full danger of working at height without protection. Never, ever allow work at heights without proper fall protection. Every edge must be secured. Every worker must be equipped with a harness, and safety nets should be mandatory where risks are this severe. Inside a warehouse packed with goods, one small mistake from a forklift triggers a disaster that spreads like dominoes. This warehouse aisle is narrow, lined with shelves stacked sky-high with pallets of drinks and boxed supplies. Forklifts navigate the tight space daily, moving quickly to meet demand. But with shelves packed to the limit, there's almost no room for error. Even the slightest impact can shake the entire structure. As the forklift approaches a pallet, its frame brushes against the rack. At first, it seems minor, a bump that should have been nothing. But the shelves shift. A groan of stressed steel echoes, and suddenly the rack gives way. In an instant, towers of stock collapse in a chain reaction, sending pallets tumbling and debris scattering across the aisle. What was once order turns into sudden chaos. Never, ever drive a forklift too close to racks, especially when shelves are overloaded and stacked high. A single impact from heavy machinery can destabilize the entire structure. Forklifts and racking systems demand space, precision, and constant awareness. Also, never overload warehouse racks or leave them unsecured. The higher the load, the greater the force. And if the structure isn't reinforced, collapse is inevitable. During a training, a helicopter begins to taxi. Suddenly, it jerks sideways, tips, and shatters into flying debris. This wasn't combat, it was controlled training, but helicopters demand perfect balance. One fault, one missed check, and stability is gone. Moments after moving, something failed. A lock left unsecured or a subtle imbalance. The helicopter rocked violently, tilting beyond recovery. In seconds, stability gave way, and the machine toppled across the pad, scattering debris and halting the exercise instantly. Pre-flight checks aren't paperwork. They're survival. Every bolt, lock, and rotor setting must be verified. Helicopters don't forgive shortcuts. The margin for error is seconds. In the heavy silence of the workshop, one massive lift turned into a catastrophic drop. This was inside a locomotive repair facility where multi-ton diesel generators were being moved with an overhead crane. The machines here are colossal. Steel frames, thick cables, and the constant hum of mechanical work filling the air. Workers trusted the crane system daily. It was the backbone of moving these enormous engines across the bay. But then, in a single moment, trust in the system collapsed. The crane cables holding the generator strained under the weight. The tension built, the hooks shuddered, and without warning, the crane cables gave way. In seconds, the lift zone turned chaotic as tons of steel moved with unstoppable momentum. Never ever trust aging or uninspected lifting equipment with loads of this magnitude. Overhead cranes must be inspected, maintained, and tested relentlessly, because one cable failure is all it takes to bring down a machine weighing several tons. The lesson here is brutally clear. Inspect every cable, every shackle, every lifting point before the load ever leaves the ground. Don't forget to share what you learned today in the comments. Your insight could save a life. Take care.